Have you ever found yourself replaying conversations for hours, asking yourself, am I overreacting? Am I asking for too much? Why does this relationship feel so hard? Or, my favorite, am I the problem? If you have, I want to offer you something that might completely change how you look at relationships. We're going to stop asking, am I the problem? Okay, hear me out. Of course, we have to consider ourselves in any kind of situation. We definitely have a part to play. The am I a problem question is not coming from a place of discernment, but rather a knee jerk response based on conditioning, relationships that we've been in. And it ends up with you taking accountability for way more than is your part. And this keeps you stuck in uncertainty and relationship fog. Hi, I'm Anne. I'm a licensed mental health clinician. I'm also a relationship clarity coach. And after finding my own way out of relationship fog, I now coach women to help build self trust and discernment so they can get clarity in their own relationships. When you have spent years people pleasing, over functioning, carrying accountability for things that are not yours, it is incredibly difficult to know what is mine, what is theirs, and what is due to the relationship dynamic. So, the first part of the discernment triangle is to determine, okay, is it mine? And you all are going to be able to check off the box on this because 99% sure you've got this covered. So, it's things like, does this go against my values? Is this go against my character, who I am known as a person? What's important to me? Is this an old wound getting activated? We're responsible for our triggers and our old wounds, and this is a thing that happens, and we can acknowledge it, right? And take accountability for it. Now, let's move on to the second point of the triangle. Is this theirs? Ask yourself, are they taking accountability for their own actions? Are they projecting? Are they projecting their emotions onto me? Are they projecting their interpretation of a situation when that was not my intention? Are they expecting me to carry the responsibility for their own triggers, their own healing? We can be supportive, but it's not up to me to smooth every emotion and to smooth things out for them. I can be supportive, but are they asking me to carry things that aren't actually mine? And then one of my favorites here, are they willing to repair? Do they want to work at coming together and repairing the relationship or the situation? Okay. Third point of the triangle. This is really important because you can have two people that do genuinely care about each other, that have their own wounds, that are getting triggered. And then there's a dynamics going on with how we interact with each other that are also creating a problem. So the third point is this the dynamic? Have we created a well-worn pattern together that is not functioning well? Are we stuck in maybe a pursuer withdraw relationship pattern dynamic? Are we in an over-functioning, under-functioning dynamic? And then there's always the caretaker caregiver dynamic. And at times we will find ourselves in these patterns, but if this is consistent, we can get stuck in a rut that's unhealthy where we're both not functioning our best. And it's not necessarily because either one is not mature or taking responsibility, but the dynamic itself is causing distress on the relationship. And now this is where you can take an accidental side road and potentially make this worse. The answer is not necessarily more information. Okay, don't get me wrong, information is critical. We have to understand what we're looking at, what we're looking for, what are we moving toward. However, if you find yourself leaning more in the people pleaser mode, self abandoning, taking extra responsibility for what is yours, We want to increase your ability of discernment, discernment to see the reality of what's going on. A big piece of what increases your ability to have discernment is to have a regulated nervous system. I know it's been everywhere for a bit now, but this really is a staple. This is also why I created the Calm Switch. I have a link to that. It walks you through the different modes that our nervous system gets into and then gives you tools to help you get to calm and safety within 90 seconds or less. So when we're dysregulated, we see through the eyes of dysregulation, and that clouds your ability to have discernment. I know this because I lived this for many years. I thought if I could just communicate better, I thought if I had more understanding of the situation and each other, maybe if I was a more healed person, then it would all finally make sense. But my clarity did not come from more understanding. It was a piece of this. But what was the linchpin for me was when I was able to increase my ability to have discernment. And I learned to separate what is mine, what is theirs, and what is the relationship dynamic using that discernment triangle. And again, if you're here, I know you're not trying to prove I'm right, you're right, he's wrong, whatever. This isn't about being right. And I know you're not even looking for that. But if we can't accurately assess what's going on, then we can't know what changes to make, or we can't know what kind of expectations to have for our partner. And it really erodes our self trust. When we don't have discernment, it erodes our self trust as well. And this was really pivotal. I want to share this with you. This realization helped me gain some traction in the fog when I started using the framework, the discernment triangle framework of what's mine, what's theirs, and what's the relationship dynamic. And then in order to trust it, what I was seeing, I had this realization. Do I trust who I know myself to be? Okay, what does that mean? What that means is, do I want what's best for myself and for my partner? Do I want what's best in this situation? Do I want us to have connection? Do I want us to have repair? Or am I set on being right and heard? When you remember who you are and that your intentions are good and that you want repair and connection, then you can start to also trust what you're seeing. Also, if you're not exactly sure if you self-abandon or do it chronically, watch this video. It goes over it in real clear, easy to notice ways if you're self-abandoning.